Welcome, everybody. Please give us a few more moments to make sure that all families have been able to log in, and we'll get started momentarily. Hi, folks. Thank you for joining us today. Give us a few more moments to make sure that all families have been able to log in, and then we'll get started. Hi, everybody. My name is Ronaldo Luna Gackett, and I want to welcome you to the second webinar of the 2022 Spring Family Webinar Series. I'm the Assistant Director in the First Year Center, and tonight I'm joined by my colleague, Dr. Tom Brounk, Director of Mental Health Services at the Habit Health and Wellness Center. We are so excited that you've chosen to join us for tonight's conversation about mental health services on campus. Some information before we get started. First, we want to make sure that you know how to submit questions during this webinar. You'll notice that we've given you the ability to ask questions via the Q&A feature. Our professional staff within the First Year Center are helping to field these questions. Second, to make sure you know how to use the Q&A feature, please go ahead and share the place that you're watching from, and we'll name a few of them on air live. While you do that, we will be showing a PowerPoint tonight created by our panelists during the webinar. However, if you prefer to download this PowerPoint and follow along on your own, please use the link that we just shared in the chat. As a note, in the chat feature, we will be sharing links and email addresses for the duration of the webinar. Fourth, this webinar is being recorded live. Next week, it will be uploaded to the families.wustl.edu website. In a moment, we will hear from our panelists about mental health services on campus. If something he says sparks a question, don't forget to send it to us using the Q&A feature. After the presentation, we'll move into the question and answer portion for the evening. Before passing things along to Dr. Brounk, I want to share some of the places that people are joining us tonight. We have families tuning in from Orlando, Florida, St. Louis, Missouri, Cleveland, Ohio, and many other locations. So now, since I know you want to hear more about mental health services, I will turn it over to Dr. Brounk.
Thank you so much, Reggie. I really welcome the opportunity to be able to speak with all of you across the country this evening. It's a warm, balmy night in St. Louis. I think we probably reached almost 80 degrees today. I actually did a telemental health session this afternoon with a student who was enjoying some of that outside weather. So that's a little bit of the wonders of telemental health these days. But I really welcome the opportunity to dive in, give you an overview of the services that we provide, maybe share a little bit about some tips about how you can talk to your students about any concerns related to taking care of themselves, the general mental health. I'm glad to respond to questions as well. Very briefly, I've been here at WashU. I'm going into my 28th year. The majority of that has been spent in my current role as Director of Mental Health Services. And I feel very fortunate to be working at this institution and be doing all that we can to support your students so they can not only succeed academically, but also personally in their lives. So first, just a little bit about who we are. As you can see, we're a pretty diverse group of professionals representing a multidisciplinary approach to the services that we provide. On the left-hand side of the screen are our psychiatry staff. So these are the individuals that meet with students to potentially start a medication if we believe that in their professional assessment that something would be warranted and the student is open to pursuing a medical intervention for their health and wellness. In the center of the screen this is the administrative leadership team. So we often are the ones that are behind the scenes and doing everything that we can so that our frontline professionals can do the best work possible. And then down this lower section is, I want to point out Krishan Newton. Krishan is our office manager, our service coordinator. She often will be the front-facing individual that will answer a phone call if you call us or responding to an email. It's helpful to know who Krishan is. She does a lot for us and supports much of the work that we do. And then I also wanted to mention that we do have a care manager. Currently, that position is open. This individual will help students to find resources, not only within the university for their concern, but also outside the university. If their needs are going to best be met, seeking out open-ended treatment for their mental health concern. And then on the right half of that page are the staff that comprise our counseling services and represent a number of different approaches to the work. If you know anything about therapy, there are many different theoretical underpinnings to the work that we do, and I feel very fortunate to have a staff that represents many and most of the mainline theoretical approaches to the counseling work that we do. So just some names and faces. Very briefly, a little bit about the services that we offer. Probably the number one service is the individual counseling. That's what most students seek us out for. Last year, pre-pandemic, we saw over 2,300 students in the counseling and mental health service. So that represents a good 19 to 20% of our student population. And if you sort of look at that over 4 years, I estimate that we're seeing probably somewhere between 40 and 50% of our students during the time that they enter and then graduate. So it's a sizable portion. Couples counseling for those students that the presenting concern really is about a relationship that they're in, and that's what's causing some of the stress. And then a number of different group programs that I'll talk about a little bit later. And what makes a student eligible for our services is payment of that health and wellness fee. That is what, if the student has paid that, then they are eligible to be seen in mental health services, which all of our full-time students, undergraduate students do pay. They're eligible for up to 9 counseling sessions at no cost. If a student needs more sessions than that 9, we do have some limited flexibility beyond that, and any charges beyond that 9th session would then be placed to the student's health insurance. They have the university student health insurance, it's a $10 copay. So that is really quite a bargain. Or it would be whatever the family insurance copay is. That's what the charge would be. And we are able to place that on a student account. Our operating hours, 8 to 5, Monday through Thursday, 9 to 5 on Fridays. That very first appointment, very easy to schedule that. Your student can go online to the student portal, answer a few very brief questions, and then they can sign up for a half-hour, what we call our initial consultation, where we're asking a few basic questions, trying to understand what the concern of your student might be, and develop a treatment plan or a beginning treatment plan at the end of that 30 minutes. And return appointments can be scheduled online. Most return appointments are scheduled at the time of the appointment with a therapist. So not a lot of need to contact us afterwards. And I want to assure you also that after hours, we are available. We have time set aside throughout the day for any type of urgent matter. So as long as the student is reaching out to us between 8 to 5, we have the ability to meet that student and figure out what's going on and address whatever urgent concern that they have. The best way to reach us in an urgent situation is to call us at 935-6695, area code 314. If we don't pick up right away, rest assured that our staff is monitoring those phone lines, and as long as we have a voicemail, we will return it promptly. Okay, a little bit more about that 24/7, 365 support. We're very fortunate that actually this past fall semester, we launched a new service through our Division of Student Affairs, through their support, called Timely Care. This is a third-party vendor that is in use with actually quite a few of our peer institutions, offering not only free counseling services, up to 12 sessions, and those can either be what they call in a talk now format. So a student could be 2 a.m., they're having difficulty sleeping, they need some support, some help to address a concern. They can simply use this app, which we have been trying to market to our students to download that app. It's available through the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. Enter in their Worcester email, and that will start them, getting them access to this app. So it's about probably a 10-minute setup process. So the more that we can encourage, you can encourage your student, that would actually help us quite a bit to download that now, so that in a situation where they aren't feeling themselves and then it's hard for them to focus, they don't have to worry about doing all that. But it offers not only scheduled counseling visits, this Talk Now option, which is available 24/7, 365. It's usually about a 5 to 7 minute wait, depending on the time that they're reaching out. Psychiatry services are also available. Something we call health coaching. So that would be somebody that has an understanding of physical fitness and dietary needs, but also medical appointments are also available. This would obviously need to be something that can be assessed through some sort of telehealth platform. Anything that would need an in-person exam, we're going to encourage students to be seen here at the Habit Health and Wellness Center. So that's just a little bit more about Timely Care. If there are further questions, I'll be glad to answer those afterwards. Okay, let's talk. It's an outreach program designed to meet students where they're at. They don't have to fill out any, treatment forms, consent forms. They don't have to schedule an appointment. They don't really even have to worry, about being seen. We're offering this service right now through telemental health options, but during non-COVID times, we would be out on campus, typically in spaces that students would hang out. We're trying to reach students that otherwise would not come into the Health and Wellness Center. You can think about it as sort of like office hours with a professor. So it's low key, about 10, 15, 20-minute appointments. Basically, we see students as they arrive. Typically, we're able to see students again within about 10 or 15 minutes of their entering the Zoom room. But it's a great way. The student has a lot of anxiety about what it means to even come to talk to a counselor. This is much more relaxed and informal. Therapy assistance online, or TAO. Online treatment. It can be accessed through a self-help health feature. Many of our students that are wanting to learn some sort of meditation and want quick tips on how to de-stress. TAO is a great platform for this. Again, it's available 24/7. It's also offered as a way of augmenting the treatment that we're doing at HABIF. So if we want a student to practice with a particular skill, a therapist can refer a student to a particular section on in TAU, or it can actually be used in what we call a coaching mode, where a student doesn't necessarily, they're not interested in therapy per se, but they do want to learn some techniques or strategies. A student can engage with the platform. We can see their progress within that platform. Then they can schedule a 15 or 20-minute coaching session with a member of the staff to help sort of solidify what they're learning or to address any barriers. Our group therapy program that I already mentioned, number of different offerings. Anything from learning what we call dialectical behavioral therapy skills, DBT, short. So this is oftentimes skills that are helping students to develop greater resilience, regulating their emotions, getting distance from their thoughts. That would be an example of one. They tend to be themed, so we're offering support to our LGBTQ+ students through group treatment, maybe assistance with addressing family concerns. One of our more popular groups is called the Understanding Self and Others. So this is a very open-ended type of group where a student, all they need to identify is that in some way, shape, or form, they're experiencing some sort of difficulty in making connections with others. So for those students that are slow to warm up, having difficulty making connections with their peers, understanding a little bit more about why they might be having that difficulty, and then having a safe, supportive environment to work on those concerns with the guidance of two trained staff members. Great way to be able to work on those types of challenges. And group therapy, by the way, there is no limit to that service. So a student can be in a group for as long as they would like and experience the benefits of that. Okay, care management and referral. As I mentioned, we do have a care manager on staff. Currently, that position is open. We're hiring right now, and hopefully we'll have somebody in place within the next month. But in the interim, I do want all of you to know about our easy to access resources for finding assistance off campus. We do have a curated list of therapists based on information received from our students that are seeing these off-campus professionals. Many of them are going to be very close to campus, be sort of extended professional staff. Some of them have worked on the staff here at HABIF. This is going to be a resource that's going to be most helpful to a student that needs more open-ended treatment. Perhaps your student knows that not having to worry about running out of appointments, they need regular weekly treatment. That's what's been successful for them in the past. Those would all be reasons why seeking some resources off campus could be helpful. And this this web address will get them connected. You can enter in the insurance carrier, how close to campus they need to be, what the issues are, if they need a particular therapist identity that they want that therapist to hold. They can search through all those different options, and we'll give them some feedback and where to start. Just want you all to be aware, though, that we also, if you have a student and they're having difficulty with sleep, and they just need some tips, and you yourself maybe want to learn about them. All that information is available to your student and to you at this email, at this web address. Everything from learning coping strategies, dealing with difficult roommate situations, that not ending imposter syndrome that many of our students that come to an elite institution experience. That sense of being, small fish, big pond is something that can be quite a challenge for students. So know that we have these very handy tip sheets. I would be remiss if I tried to do this presentation and not mention some of our very important campus partners. I feel very fortunate that Washington University is a campus where I know the people that I need to reach out to. They're not just names to me. So that's the real great benefit of working in a medium sized institution where connections are really important. So I'm only listing 3 here, but there are many beyond this. But WashU Cares, we work very closely with that organization comprised of 2 individuals that are making connections for students that might be having difficulty with finances, students that are having difficulty academically. They just need a connection to resources. WashU Cares is the place for that. And they accept phone calls from parents, from faculty, staff, other students, just wanting to say, hey, I've got a concern about this other student, and I want you to know about it. So communication, open communication is probably the greatest way that we can provide the necessary safety nets for our students. All of our campus partners in residential life. If you don't know who the RCD is, the Residential College Director for where your son or daughter lives, that might be a good person to sort out who that is. All that information is available on the Residential Life website. They can be, certainly will always listen to whatever concerns, as would any member of my staff, myself included. We can always listen to your concerns. We can't always share the information out if you know that your son or daughter is being seen by us, but we can always listen, and we can have more open conversations with the release once that's signed. I can talk more about that if there are questions about that. But Res Life is a great connection. And then our peer counseling and support service, Uncle Joe's, is what they're known for. They offer both support through the phone or a walk-in service every night that school's in session from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. here on the residential part of campus. They're closely linked to our staff. We are involved with their training. We consult with them regularly. And we have found, and we know this, that having a strong peer-based support service on campus is integral, again, to that safety net, because it's oftentimes students reaching out to their peers where they're the first ones to hear about a concern. Lastly, just wanted to recap for you the services that I just mentioned. So here they are. That 314-935-6695 is our main number for the direct link to the mental health services area of the Habit Health and Wellness Center, and our general web address there. Lots of information there. Certainly, if after perusing it, you have further types of questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. It's a very similar number, 935-5955 is my number. If I can't get back with you within that same day, I will have a member of our leadership team get back with you. We want to partner with you as much as we can. And then lastly, just a few tips, because I was asked to say very briefly about some tips about how to make a successful referral to our service. One thing I can suggest is use what I call the backdoor approach. That is where What I mean, if a student won't come in and talk, they feel too uncomfortable talking about, a relationship difficulty, or they're struggling with depression, but they are experiencing problems with sleep, or maybe their diet, or maybe they're having a tension in their upper back, the backdoor approach. So make a referral to a member of one of our doctors in the medical clinic. They work very closely with us. That's the beauty of an integrated healthcare system here, is that we know one another. They can make an easy handoff. They can walk a student over, in non-COVID times. During COVID times, it's a Zoom appointment, but they can get your students started. Talk about counseling as one appointment. Don't talk, the idea of sort of having to set aside, a weekly time to meet with a therapist can be daunting when students are so busy. So just talk about one appointment. That will get, hopefully, the ball rolling. Some of the stress and anxiety can be reduced. And oftentimes that's a good enough start. Okay, so I know there's probably many questions out there. I'm going to pause here and turn things over to Reggie.
Dr. Brounk, thank you so much for sharing all of that information. I have a first question that I know many families may be wondering. So you talked a little bit about a family approach or a family member's approach to students in terms of some outreach, but can you speak a little bit more about how your team does outreach to students who you may know are reluctant for finding help?
Yeah. So first of all, I think we rely on our student groups. So we do have two groups on campus, one called Active Minds and the other Uncle Joe's. They are oftentimes a bridge to the counseling service. We offer a robust number of groups or a number of outreach topics to students. So, and we find that actually it's our student groups that are requesting this. So, it might be an organization that your student's already involved in. They'll call and they'll ask one of the counselors to come out and talk to their Sunday night meeting. So it's going out to where students already are and presenting information. Once they get to know a name and a face, it's a little less daunting. Our Let's Talk program is another great example where we are going out to students. Students don't have to come over to Havif. Once that bridge, again, is made, it's a lot easier than to, okay, this isn't quite as scary or daunting. I can make it over to Havif now. But a number of different topics, relationships, stress management, dealing with eating concerns, how to help a friend. That's a big issue nowadays about students concerned about other students.
Thank you so much. So families, we're going to move on to the remainder of our audience submitted questions. As a reminder, please submit your questions via the Q&A feature found at the bottom of the screen. Dr. Brounk, what resources are confidential for students and which ones are not?
Good question. So anything that is a service provided through a Havif provider here at the Health and Wellness Center is going to fall under HIPAA. So this is where sometimes it can be a little bit frustrating for a parent. As I mentioned, we can talk to you and listen, hear your concerns, provide some general types of consultation or suggestions to you. But if your son or daughter is being seen by a provider here, then we do need their permission. Of course, this is a situation where we're talking about a life, an imminent safety risk. Then our state laws allow us to reach out to whoever can intervene with the student most quickly. So any service provided at Hammond is going to be confidential. Anytime that we're acting outside of our role as a therapist, so if we're presenting on campus, that would not be a confidential situation. And we let students know that so that there isn't any confusion about when their privacy is being protected and when we're not able to do that. Trying to think of other services that we provide that wouldn't be confidential. It's hard for me to think of that right out of the box. Yeah.
Thank you. Dr. Brown, can you talk a little bit more about the after-hours support that students have? Does this support line also get answered on the weekends, or is it only for after hours on business hours?
No, it's available 24/7, 365. Students do not, if it's during the summer and they're at home. The great thing about timely care is that they can reach out to a clinician in their home state. So they have access to services even during the summer. As long as they have paid that health and wellness fee for that prior semester, they're going to be eligible all during the summer.
And family members, as a clarification, that is not the same as the student health insurance. So, yes. Dr. Brounk, are there certain resources in place for students with diagnosed eating disorders, such as group therapy or things like that? Where should a student reach out to get support for eating disorders?
We do. We have, as I mentioned, we have an integrated team that works together, an MD, as well as a psychiatrist. Our mental health nurse is on that team, as well as several of our therapists and a dietitian. So I would recommend reaching out, having your student sign up for one of those initial consultations. And during that 30-minute meeting, we can sort out who would be best for that student to speak with if it's not going to be a therapist as a starting point. Perhaps they want to talk to, make an appointment in the medical clinic. They could do that. They could make an appointment with their dietitian. Any of those would be common starting places.
Could you speak to in-person counseling versus virtual counseling sessions? Is that something that we're seeing a move back to on our campus? Is that something that we're seeing a move back to in the larger mental health services profession? Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, so here in the St. Louis area, actually the masking policies for the county were lifted this past week. And then for the city, I believe it's the end of, I think it's sometime next week. Those are being lifted. The university has not yet announced what that will look like here on campus. I expect that at some point later this semester, those masking policies will be lifted. And at that point, then, depending on when that occurs, we will begin returning our mental health professionals back to campus. I don't have an exact date for you. We will always continue, though, to provide telemental health services. We've learned through trial by fire, that can sometimes be the greatest teacher, that we can provide excellent services and in a way that is more convenient to our students. So depending on the clinical issue, unless it's one where we're deciding that no, we really need to be in person, it's going to be a hybrid form of service to our students. And obviously a mask, when you're trying to provide in-person services and having to talk with a mask on both faces for 50 minutes, there's a lot of muffling and just sort of difficulty that can occur, not to mention people getting upset. It's a natural thing in our offices, and masks coming off in a in-person setting up until very recently wasn't possible. So yeah, I expect a return, and it's just a matter of when and how quickly.
Dr. Brounk, you have a pretty wide team of folks, which is awesome. Are students always seeing licensed mental health providers, or are some of these folks trainees in graduate school providing therapy as well?
Currently, all of our providers are licensed in the state of Missouri, and with one exception, we do occasionally have a rotation through our Department of Psychiatry at the Washington University School of Medicine. They are closely supervised by our licensed staff. So on occasion, your student may have the experience of meeting with these would all be fourth year residents. So they've completed their medical school education. They're in their fourth year of their residency. So these are still very highly trained professionals. We are looking to provide a training program down the road. I think this has many advantages, not only for staff retention and recruitment purposes, but also continuing to diversify the makeup of our staff. So, but currently all licensed mental health professionals here.
Thank you. Are services available for students who are already on a mental health leave of absence?
That depends. So if a student takes that medical leave after the fourth week of the semester, so at this point, this would apply. They retain that student health and wellness fee, and they remain eligible for services. If it's the university policy that if a student withdraws within the first 4 weeks of any given semester, all fees and a portion of tuition is refunded to the student. So that would include the health and wellness fee. So if a student leaves early in that semester, then they would not be eligible.
What is the process for students who want to sign up for counseling services? And how long does it take for those students to have their first appointment typically?
So this is all done online. We found that actually this is something we will retain post-COVID or post return to more normal operating procedures. It's so easy for students to be able to sort of just zoom in to an appointment for 30 minutes. So those are done through those scheduled appointments through our portal. If a student cannot find a time through the portal, then they are instructed to call us. And we will speak with them and get them signed up for initial consultation. There was another part here. Oh, wait times. So that varies throughout the semester. We're coming up on the time of the year where for an appointment at Habith, that wait begins to grow. The demand and supply issue, if you follow, if you have students at other institutions, this is a national issue. The supply and demand issue is quite a challenge. Here's the good news, though, is that timely care. We're now in about almost our fourth month. We're getting very positive reviews of this service. I've not had one complaint yet from a student. If those are occurring, they've not yet reached me. So I think this is a great way to augment the services that if your student can be seen virtually, if they're open to that, the wait for a timely care scheduled counseling appointment is right now probably a week or two, depending on the clinician. If that clinician's high demand, it's the same situation here. It can stretch into 3 to 4 weeks.
So that actually connects to our next question. Is timely care more of an urgent resource than mental health services? Is it more of a supplement? Like, how would you encourage our families and students to approach timely care versus some of those other options you were sharing about?
Yeah, so I think it really depends on the student. If obviously, if they know they feel more comfortable talking to a member of the mental health staff here, we're going to understand the resources and the network, how to get things done, so to speak. If it's an issue about a course withdrawal, if it's a concern about how do I make a connection with our Disability Resource Center, any of our campus partners, we're going to be the experts there. Psychiatry services, oftentimes, as I mentioned, there is some limited access to psychiatry through Timely Care. They really are not going to meet with a student that has a complex issue, is on multiple medications. So those all might be differentiating factors. But I think there's many doors to step through, and I would encourage your student, whichever one feels the one that they want to take. And obviously, if there's a wait, we're going to refer a student. If we can't see them in person, we'll encourage, or within a reasonable time frame, we will make a referral to Timely Care.
Are the 9 sessions that you were talking about, are they 9 free sessions over the course of one academic year, one semester, all 4 years as a student, as an undergraduate student?
Great question. It's 9 appointments per academic year. And for our purposes, that runs July 1st to June 30th. I should mention that there is no limit to those psychiatry appointments. So once a student becomes a client of one of our psychiatrists, then we're continuing to monitor that student until such time they no longer need that.
Dr. Brounk, many students, especially our first and second year students who are continuing their college education in the midst of this pandemic, have been struggling to find connection and are feeling isolated. What advice do you have for those students to prioritize their mental health in this difficult time?
So I think about trying to start small with this, particularly if the issue is they feel like they don't have the time. It can be things like, we know a lot about physical exercise and its impact on student wellness. So it can mean something like, okay, maybe you try to get that heart rate up on the way to class. If a student can get 30 minutes in over the course of a day, then that is meeting the guideline. 30 minutes where you're getting that heart rate up, taking a little bit longer route to class potentially. That's pretty easy. Okay. So start easy. Being out in nature. We just had a great day here. I hope that most of our students were able to get outside those 4 walls. It's going to be a mild evening. Maybe they can get outside and just get out into nature. We know that is going to have a pretty big bang for your buck in addition to exercise. But then I also think downloading, one of those Headspace app, the Calm app, great things can be gained through learning meditation. Those are all within pretty easy access. Our TAL platform, pretty easy platform for learning. Those would all be some very easy beginning steps.
I know you mentioned mental health services provides group therapy options for students, but are there any low intensity support or conversation groups for students who may be struggling with specific challenges?
Low intensity. So there I'm thinking Uncle Joe's, meeting with our peer counselors. That is probably the easiest way when I think of low intensity is a student talking to another student. Again, the Let's Talk program would be lesser intensity. They can arrive sight unseen. You don't have to worry about scheduling. I think making use of on campus, making use of their RA. Most of our students, if they live in residential halls, they're going to have an RA. They're going to know about their RA. That's a great resource. So I would suggest having them reach out to their RA as well. The low intensity groups would be more like our interpersonal process group, that kind of thing.
Are faculty members or advisors able to contact mental health services if they're concerned about a student?
They absolutely are. And we do train for our faculty staff on a request basis. We're actually looking forward to expanding that further. We just received through a very generous donation the ability to purchase online training for our faculty and staff and our students around how to identify and make successful referrals to students, and to pay for a staff member for 3 years of follow-up programming to our faculty and staff. You know, our web of support throughout the university. So that look for that. That's going to be coming out in the next year.
Really quickly, can you speak to any specific services that Habit offers to support students who hold historically marginalized identities here at WashU?
Sure. So we are always trying, first of all, we know that what will help get a student across the threshold is being able to identify somebody like them. So we try to, we're very fortunate to have 2 Mandarin speaking clinicians at a counseling center our size. That's a pretty rare find. So I feel very fortunate in that respect. We do have 2 African-American therapists. We also have one of our psychiatrists is African-American. Again, this is continually trying to diversify the staff is something that is of the utmost priority. Timely care, fortunately, has a number of African-American clinicians within the state of Missouri on it. Yeah, just trying to increase our representation, making use of our partnerships with other campus partners, getting ourselves out into the campus community so students don't have to come over to Habit.
Dr. Brounk, we're going to ask one more question for the evening. Thank you so much for the information that you shared so far tonight. How can parent and family members initiate conversations with their students about mental health and support them, especially when they may be far away?
Right. So I think the degree that you can let your student know that you're there to listen. Don't underestimate the power of being able to listen and validate. That is probably when somebody's beginning to struggle, that isolation and disconnect can be one of the greatest issues and difficulties. Letting them know that you're always present and want to hear whatever their concern is, that obviously you're concerned about their academics, but they have to be well. They have to be physically well. They have to be emotionally well and personally well. They have to have supports, and feel a sense of connection. That in a way has to come first. So know as in whatever way that you can be communicating that to your student, I think that will help them to have a more open, they're more likely to reach out to you. If they can't make that first step, you can make the call, get the information for the student. Whatever way we can help you to help your student, we want to do that. And again, going back to that idea of talking about one appointment, making it easy. That's all that you would be asking them. And we're here for you. We consider you a part of that web of support, and whatever way that we can be working together to support your student I think the better job will be done.
Dr. Brock, thank you so much again. Families, we hope you were able to learn some valuable information this evening. As a reminder, this webinar recording will be shared at families.woostall.edu next week. Stay tuned for more information about upcoming family webinars, which will be announced on our website, families.woostall.edu. We'll see you then. Thank you.